The Electoral College has managed to hand victory to the loser of the popular vote about 11% of the time in U.S. history. How does that happen? It is the unequal power created by the Electoral College that makes it possible for the candidate who loses the popular vote to win the presidency. Before 2000, such discussion could have been laughed off as mere historical footnotes. At the dawn of the new millennium, it had been more than 100 years since that had happened. Since then, it's happened twice. Donald Trump lost by 2.8 million votes in 2016, yet claimed presidential victory. George W. Bush lost by 500,000 votes in 2000, yet claimed victory as well. Just as Benjamin Harrison defeated Grover Cleveland by losing the popular vote in 1888. Just as Rutherford B. Hayes claimed victory over Samuel Tilden by losing the vote in 1876. And just as John Quincy Adams defeated Andrew Jackson by losing in 1824. So it goes. 5 out of 46 presidents have gotten their jobs by losing the popular vote. If this trend continues, we can expect 11% of future presidents to get their job despite being defeated at the polls. Can you imagine how long the NFL would last if losers were allowed to claim victory 11% of the time? I can hear the analysis now. Well, John, the Packers certainly had more points at the end of the game. It's just too bad they didn't complete more field goals in the early minutes of the third quarter. Otherwise, they might have actually beaten the Bears. I don't think football fans would be cool with that. The bigger question is, why are we cool with it? Truth be told, Americans aren't really that cool with it. Gallup has been polling on this question for nearly 50 years, and on average, 60% of Americans consistently say the Electoral College should be abolished. That number shifts from time to time. In 1968, when Richard Nixon nearly lost the popular vote with a huge win in electoral votes, 80% of Americans said it was time for the Electoral College to go. When Donald Trump won in 2016, the poll dipped below 50% for the first time ever, because even though 80% of Democrats thought the Electoral College should go, Republicans suddenly remembered how much they loved it, and only 19% said it should die. But aside from blips like that, the message is consistent. The American people have no love for the Electoral College. Despite this, there are plenty of apologists who argue that when it comes to this crusty old 18th century compromise, we should mend it, not end it. Their defenses are facile and weak. Smart people like federal judge Richard Posner take up many column inches arguing it's a good thing that winning by a small margin in the popular vote, say Obama's 51.1% to Romney's 47.2% in 2012, can translate into a considerable 61.7% in the Electoral College. According to Posner, this certainty of outcome is good because it makes recounts unnecessary. Another common argument is that electing presidents by popular vote would encourage campaigns to neglect small states in favor of big states or big cities. The thinking goes that if every vote were weighted equally, presidential candidates would only campaign in big cities or big states because that's where most voters are. But as Robert Dahl points out, this is a faulty assumption. He writes, in a system of direct election where every citizen's votes are given equal weight, presidential candidates will be even more eager than they are now to win votes wherever they might be available. And the closer they expect the election to be, the more eagerly they will search out those votes. Finally, the winner-take-all nature of our Electoral College is supposedly a good thing because it promotes stability. As I have discussed, the threat of throwing one's vote away shoves Americans into the arms of the major parties. According to academic Larry Sabato, this helps forge consensus and encourage coalition building. Though, as we have seen in the hyper-partisanship of recent years, this is just not so. According to Sabato, having multiple political parties leads to too much quarreling and frequent ungovernable destabilization. Nothing like we have now with just the two parties. No one looking at the sad shambles our polity has become needs a postgraduate education to know these alleged upsides of the Electoral College are hogwash. The reality is that any actual benefits of keeping the Electoral College are few and inconsequential. I can think of no good reason to keep it. Despite hundreds of aborted attempts to kill it off, since the Constitution was ratified, the Electoral College staggers on, an unkillable zombie abomination. According to the National Archives, there have been more proposals for constitutional amendments on changing the Electoral College than on any other subject. Thomas Jefferson himself called it the most dangerous blot on our Constitution. It's time we finally aim for the head and take it down once and for all. It is an outrage that the Electoral College is shambling towards its 250th birthday. We should feel shame and disgust that this undemocratic anachronism still haunts our elections. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Tomorrow, we'll discuss a non-constitutional change that could potentially be a silver bullet against the Electoral College. Until then, please like, follow, favorite, and subscribe to my free Substack. What do you say? Let's make them pay.